Haha, you thought you were safe from Excal Week after seeing the powerful Exalted Blade build I had before. But behold! Slash Dash has incredible range and lock-on capabilities, and can do immense damage, rivaling that of Exalted Blade when built correctly, and building for it is quite a bit different than you might expect. Slash Dash is affected by the melee combo counter, and its Augment Surging Dash allows you to increase the melee combo counter by a lot more than just one per enemy hit. You'll notice that when I hit an enemy, check out my combo counter in the bottom right. When I hit an enemy, you'll notice I'm at 45 now I'm at 54. Every time I hit an enemy, my combo counter goes up by 9, which is a pretty big amount. And sometimes you get weird lock-on moments like what you just saw. Hilarious! Okay, so this is kind of a meme build, but seriously, like it's actually not bad, and it's a lot of fun, so that's basically why. It's not that much worse in a lot of situations than slash dashing all over the place. Your health is immune to damage while you're slash dashing, so you can sort of zoom all over the map really fast, get lots of movement. There's a lot of movement speed to be had here, and you're also protected, so you can dive into a big group of enemies, and as long as you keep slash dashing, you're completely safe. You can't take damage during that time, which is very powerful in some circumstances. You can charge enemies, be sort of a frontliner kind of Excal, not be so careful, not worry about enemies being in front of you, just kind of dive into them and spam slash dash and go crazy. And again, like, if this isn't for you, then go check out my video on Tuesday of Excal Week where we talked about the Exalted Blade maximizing build. But if this looks cool to you, if you want a more active, multi-dimensional Exalted Blade playstyle that allows you to not be on the ground all the time, that allows you to sort of bounce around a little bit, I recommend this slash dash build. So let's talk about it in a little bit more detail after I clean these enemies up. Alright, now that I've got my alertium, we can proceed. Let's discuss some of the differences between modding for Exalted Blade and modding for slash dash. Now the very biggest difference is that slash dash is affected by the melee combo counter, and I told you before that we're increasing that with Surging Dash. So this augment gives you more combo counter hits than just one when you hit an enemy with slash dash, and that number, it says it increases it by 4 additional hits. That's increased by power strength as well. So we've got 200% power strength, so that goes up to 8. So we actually get 9 combo counter hits every time we hit a target with slash dash, so that's awesome. And slash dash's damage itself is affected by that power strength. Slash dash, of course, does take account the mods on your melee weapon, but because attack speed is not as important here since we're doing individual casts, I've gone ahead and went for just raw damage, and then we've included combo counter mechanics because this weapon has those. The status chance doesn't matter if you have body count and not drifting contact, just go ahead and use that. But we have pressure point, all the 90% elementals, spoiled strike since we don't really care about the attack speed here, and then buzzkill. Slash dash does mostly slash damage, so this is great if you have it. It's perfectly fine if you don't, just substitute maybe even more combo counter so that you never lose your massive stack. You know, you got 500 combo counter hits, it's not bad to maintain those. It's a pretty big boost to damage you'd be losing. Wicked powerful. Having the melee combo counter go up this fast, there's a lot of damage there, so I promised that we would actually show against some more armored enemies, and we shall. Let us take bombards. We don't need to be afraid of their attacks, so might as well grab 5 level friggin', I don't know, 80, like the highest level you're gonna see in sorties, the top sorties. And then we'll just kind of dive in. And one great thing about this build is you really don't need any prep, and you can engage from like quite a considerable range and just start going. And like, you're not killing these enemies, like these enemies are not dying by any stretch of the imagination, not in the slightest, not literally at all. Okay, so I might have lied to you a little bit. You shouldn't be using this build for situations where enemies are that high level. If we switch it down to, you know, level 50 enemies, let's say, you're gonna shred some people up, but if armor is scaled that high, this amount of slash damage, just slash damage, suffering mitigations against armor, and just without any way to reduce that armor, you're really not going to get there. It's not for that. This build is for fun. This build is for fun. The thing is, Exalted Blade optimized the way that we worked on it in our Tuesday Excal Week video is just way overkill for most of the content you're going to normally do, right? Like, we all like to run builds that are good up through sorties, up through Kuva siphons and stuff, but realistically speaking, most of the missions you're actually going to play, you do not need something that powerful. So if there's something fun you can do besides that, that has value, and that's what this is here for. Excal is very, very powerful, and he's great for all the way through sorties. Use Exalted Blade, but you don't have to if the content's easier. There's a lot of power to be had in Slash Dash as well. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Check out these claws. Vanka Prime has an increased combo counter scale, right? So most of the time you think about using that in terms of its own damage, you know, like making the Vanka Prime itself do greater damage because it has a higher combo counter ramp up. But that works for Slash Dash too. Like, now we're doing alright. I reduced them to level 50, but that's fine. That was fine. Okay, and don't lie, like the simple fact that you can just sort of dive in to a group of enemies like that, it's pretty fun. Like, I like being able to just go like YOLO hero on like a huge group of enemies, right? Like that's got its own value. And again, that's what this is about. It's just about like feeling badass and having fun, and like you're not going to be able to clear the very hardest content that we've got on our hands with this, but it will be good up through relatively difficult starchart stuff and even early sorties, and that has value. I mean, if you find this fun, if you don't, then just use Exalted Blade all the time, but like, these guys are dying a little bit better this time. We're up to 4.75 combo counter. You don't see that every day. Booyah. Oh, that's some damage. It's actually not though, like look at the number. We're only doing like 2,200. Oh my god, it's so little damage. But yeah, again, that combo counter, right? I highly recommend that you bring Carrier when you do this, because even the, you know, you're diving headfirst into a group of enemies, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your Sentinel wants to. So bring something tanky that can survive that situation, even though you're probably going to be safe. I would go ahead and bring Carrier. Bring a tanky Carrier. Here's my Carrier build if you want one. Self-destruct is completely unnecessary. It would be fired up and I'm not running a weapon on my Carrier. So self-destruct is okay. It has a pretty big explosion radius, and it lets you know when your Sentinel is dead if you happen to fail to notice. But part of the reason I made this video this way is because I really do want to talk about it a little bit. Like, you gotta stop valuing just damage the most, because it is not the most valuable thing. There's a lot of fun to be had by just forsaking damage and saying, you know what, I think it'll be fun to do things this way. I'm gonna accomplish things by doing something really stupid and just going to town on enemies like this. And I mean, these are level 50 enemies and they're actually getting shredded, like, which is not bad at all. Like, that's 12,000 damage to those level 15 heavy 50, not 15, excuse me, heavy gunners. Like, that's cool, you know, it's fun. So let's talk about how you might flesh out a loadout using this, because there are still some problems. One of the biggest problems is there's no sustain. So perhaps the most obvious option here would be a Lifesteal Furus build. So you can bring this along. I had formatted this and forgot, and I pulled up the build and I was like, where did my mods go? It's got 20% lifesteal, and then when you're down on damage, you can just pepper a dude with bullets and you'll be back to full health. So let's say we jump in here again. And there are a lot of options, but I think this is probably the simplest one. Like, let yourself get hit a little bit, take some damage. You can sort of flank around dudes, and then fire off some bullets. And this does actually okay damage. Like, the problem with the Furus is mostly ammo economy, but if you're going to be bringing a Carrier, and you're only going to use it to, like, heal yourself up every so often, like so, not really so much of a problem. You should be fine. It's actually a fairly good weapon, and again, for lifesteal utility, unmatched. Getting your secondary to be lifesteal. While we're doing this self-sustain discussion, I just want to note that one reason to use Nikana Prime is that Nikanas have 85% damage reduction when blocking. So like, if you're going to approach enemies to slash dash them, and then before you slash dash, you can block. If you block with Vanka Prime, it's not blocking that much damage, but this is almost blocking all damage, so potentially a reason to use this, even though it doesn't have the increased combo counter that will make you do a lot more damage like the Vanka Prime would. And then other options would be, say, the Hema. You could take this with you. Here's my Hema build. So I use Guided Ordnance on this weapon because you heal on headshots when you shoot this thing, but it's actually not all that accurate, so I think it's very helpful. Guided Ordnance will increase your accuracy when you get a hit. So see, I'm going to aim, and now I'm going to go full auto. See, even if I was shooting at something at medium range, not all of those pellets would hit, even if my aim was perfect. So by adding Guided Ordnance, your aim becomes basically pinpoint when you actually hit an enemy. So I'll give you a demonstration. So let's kick just a Corrupted Bombard. Just the Bombard. And I'm going to shoot so you can see the spread without it. See, it's like that, and I'm going to get a hit. And now I'm going to shoot directly at it. And now you can see the spread with that buff active. See, it's a lot better, right? Much more linear. So that's a great option. And then of course, you could bring along a weapon that has a Syndicate proc that will heal you. So if you grab a Sancti Tigris or a Vacor Heck or a Vacor Merlock or whatever, right, you can keep this weapon equipped while you do your slash dashes, and then every time you kill enough enemies to trigger the Syndicate proc, you'll restore 25% of your health passively. So this is a way to not really even do anything, and you'll just get health back. This is a kind of underused, in my opinion, aspect of Syndicate weapons. If you're going to be doing something that doesn't require you to have a specific gun out, then you can just hold the Syndicate weapon and it will passively give you bonuses just like as you do stuff. Also, perhaps a reason to use Sancti Tigris over Tigris Prime. One of very few reasons to use Sancti Tigris over Tigris Prime. So with that, I hope that you all enjoyed this slightly different take on an Excal build. I really do think that this is a lot of fun if you want to approach content in a slightly different way. It's a great, efficient build that lets you move really fast in multiple dimensions and do an incredibly badass sword sweep a very, very large number of times. I wouldn't recommend it if there are very few enemies, because even though your slash dashes cost a very small amount of energy, you're still not really regenning it anyway, and I don't know, you're still using a lot of energy if you have lots of targets. So if you're not killing enough enemies to get an energy orb every so often, probably leave this at home. And again, for like level 80, you saw against level 50 it did fine, so like sortie 1 if you want to, definitely, but like I wouldn't use this for super high level content, unless you have 4 corrosive anyway. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed Excal Week, and tomorrow will be Fashion Frame Fridays, in which we will feature all of the appearances for weapons and Excal shown over the course of this week. I assure you, there will be fashion to fit your need, budget or pay to win as it may be. See you then.